So JC, take it away.
Well, thank you so much. And by the way, I haven't seen David in a long time, so it's really good to see your face, David.
Thank you, JC. Always good to see you too.
Great, and we'll see each other soon. So, you know, look at this right here. You know, so this is just another tool, and I'll integrate it into my talk. But you know, I was reading something from this, and this is part of the foreword of Dr. A's new book, Discover Your Optimal Health, which, you know, I started giving these out before I even read it, just because Dr. A never steers us wrong, and my current reality right now is that I just firmly believe in this man, and not only believe in him, but just through his actions. You know, it's just amazing. I've never experienced being so close to somebody that is such a revolutionary leader. I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to achieve what he sets out to do, and that's why you always hear me say I'm all in, because I'm inspired by the man. So, you know, I'm talking about Autonomy Supportive tonight, and I was reading this because I was looking for inspiration. You know, my life is not perfect, but my life is very, very good because I handle adversity in a different way because of my current reality, because of what I know. So in looking for inspiration, you know, I start off doing things like this. You know, these are my little boys, Jeremy and Jackson. I don't know if all of you have ever seen them. And the significance of this picture, they're baseball players. You know, I'm a doctor that used to just work my butt off, and now I coach baseball. And, you know, when football season comes up, I'll be coaching football. So I'm reading this, and in the foreword, it says optimal health, or it says optimal means the best possibility available. Kind of lends to what I'm talking about. Not everyone has the same possibilities based on their current reality, right? Nonetheless, Dr. A's approach creates the best possible health condition you can accomplish for your situation. What could be better? So, you know, once again, this is a wonderful tool, and it's just totally relevant. You know, I don't know how you're looking at this book, but this book speaks to me, and if I hand this book to somebody, it's going to speak to them no matter where they're at. Speaks to their intrinsic motivation. So, by the way, it's July 4th tomorrow, and there's fireworks going off in the back, so it's kind of interesting. So what I want to do right now is kind of start off from the beginning and establish a little bit of a current reality. So let's start off with my current reality, because my current reality right now is way, way different than it used to be. So 7 years ago, when I found out about Take Shape for Life, I was not in a situation where I thought that my goal would be to achieve optimal health, to be a better dad, and to be happier, to enjoy life more. And all I was a guy that thought that I had all the answers, but I was fat. And I'm sorry to use that word, but that's what I was. If I looked in the mirror, I saw a man that was telling his patients, as the leader of his practice, I was telling my patients how to achieve optimal health, but I was not healthy. So my current reality back then, which was created by my concepts, and my concepts, just like yours, our concepts are created by everything that we've experienced in life. So 7 years ago, when Take Shape for Life came into, you know, my path, all I noticed, all that was interesting to me at that time, was the fact that that program seemed like it was going to be easy, and it was inexpensive, and I wanted an out. I remember thinking, if this doesn't work, I want to be able to get out of this and go back to eating chicken parm and pretending to be healthy. You know, I remember I used to call myself a healthy fat guy as a health practitioner. So all I was interested in the beginning was losing weight. That was my intrinsic motivation, because my concepts and my current reality said, JC, all you need to do is lose weight, and then you will have. It was kind of like, if I do this, then I'll have that. So what's interesting about that is a lot of you might be looking at, you know, presidential directors and thinking that we're superhuman beings. But I was just a normal guy that had a big ego, you know, and I thought I had all the answers, but I just didn't want to be overweight because I didn't like the feeling of knowing that I was playing part in my patients not getting healthy. So that's the reason why I went on this program. And my coach, my mentors were smart enough to be autonomy supportive and only give me that which I was looking for. So I'm very grateful to Dr. A. In fact, when he said autonomy supportive, I looked it up and I thought I knew what it was, but until I had a discovery moment about it, it didn't really resonate. I'm so grateful to Dr. A. I'm so grateful for the culture of Take Shape for Life. You know, Terry and David and all the wonderful presidential leaders and the people that are stepping up and doing all the work, but also showing me a whole new way of approaching family values. You know, my number one goal right now is to be the world's greatest father. That's what I want. So I carry this around with me all the time. So I'm so grateful to the culture of Take Shape for Life and to my coaches for allowing me to, and my ever-changing current reality to evolve and give me things based on what I wanted. So what I want to do now as a beginning is I want to just create a current reality amongst all of us. Because sometimes we get a disconnect between us and them, you know, and you know, you hear things like it's not about us, it's about them, and that's a simple way to look at it. But let's establish a current reality amongst all of us, whether you're a brand new coach or a seasoned veteran. So understanding current reality. So one of my mentors, and through a lot of reading, taught me that our current reality is based on our concepts, but our concepts are something that we've created our whole life based on our MFTP, our mother, father, teacher, preacher. So right now, my current reality is amazing, and part of that is because of my teacher, this guy right here, and all of you and all my mentors that inspire me. So just remember that at all phases of your life, your concepts are not bad things. They're yours, and whatever is yours you think is good. But let's look at our current reality based on what we know now. Do we have a weight loss solution? So the obesity crisis is a mess. The pond is stocked, and we understand that. If somebody is intrinsically motivated like I was to lose weight, do we have a program that works? If somebody goes on the 5-in-1 and eats the 5 MetaFast meal replacements and the lean and green and follows the rules, they don't even have to do it perfectly. If they do it, will they lose weight? Check. Yes, everybody's going like this right now. Even if you're brand new. Do we have something more, right? Do we have something more? Look at that. Do we have something more that takes us a step further beyond weight loss? So we all recognize that it's not all about weight loss. Weight loss is the catalyst for change. Do we have something that will help us have a discovery moment, become inspired, link to our intrinsic motivation and that which matters most, and then take us to a whole new level? Like I said, I never saw that I was an unhealthy father or my relationships were unhealthy. All I thought was I was overweight, and if I lost weight, I'd be fine. So we have more. Check. That's part of our current reality. Do we have a good business opportunity, right? In a world full of confusion, fear, and uncertainty economically, because you think about it, if somebody wakes up tomorrow and they have to either address their health or feed their family, what are they going to do first? Primarily, they're going to feed their family. So we have an economic struggle right now, and we have a situation that we refer to as an entrepreneurial fantasy, because we actually can be part of a mission and also be part of something that of purpose, right? Link your passion and your paycheck, your pay and your play. And my question to you is, if you've got one client, did you help that client, enjoy that client, and see the results, feel good about it, and then notice that money came into your account? Yes. And if you're helping a lot of clients, or even building a team, you're getting paid a lot of money. So yes, 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 we have those things. That's our current reality. And that's why my brother from another mother, Dr. Mark Nelson, who is a cardiologist, I never thought as a chiropractor I'd ever be friends with a cardiologist, but he's my friend and my brother, and inside and outside of Take Shape for Life. Once again, thank you to Take Shape for Life. He refers to the fact that we have a diamond in our pocket. Now, everybody knows the value of a diamond. So when we say we have a diamond in our pocket, we are kind of using that terminology to explain how good this thing is that we have. But my question is do they know that this is a diamond? Well, maybe if they only think that it's something that will help them lose weight and they lose 10 pounds, and then they might associate it with a diamond. But a diamond is really, really nice. So understand that if we go around telling everybody without finding out what they want, or without finding out if they're looking for this, that it's a diamond, they may not understand that. So what is our mission? Is our mission to get everybody to think the same way as us? If we go out every day, are we trying to get people to be just like us? I mean, because we have something that can transform your whole life, all these things. This is amazing. And we all know in our current reality, which is creating our new concepts, right? Remember, concepts are not bad. Our concepts are great right now. But we all know that, but do they? And if we sometimes find ourselves trying to explain to them how good what we have is without finding out if they're looking for it, there's a potential disconnect. So before I get into the autonomy supportive, I'm very, very motivated and interested in human behavior, because what I do is I try to share and guide people into this process of Take Shape for Life, because I'm passionate about it and I'm inspired to be part of this mission. You know, this mission to get America healthy, this mission to make a measurable change in obesity and eradicate obesity. I want to tell everybody about that. But I'm smart enough, because I'm working on my emotional intelligence, which I haven't done, you know, BT before Trilogy. I am very interested in why people do things, what motivates people to do things. So I've read a lot of books. The first book that really caught my eye was a book called Influence by Robert Cialdini, The Psychology of Persuasion. And what he taught me is that people are motivated by certain things, and what we should do is be detectives of intrinsic motivation. Well, that made sense to me, you know. When I hear something that resonates with something that's really important to me, my value system, because me, or you guys just like me, we're value-seeking missiles, you know. All we do is we look around all day for things that we value. So there's three main forces in further studying that motivate people. So first two are the most common, like 95% at least, that which causes people to do something. So people are either trying to avoid pain, get away from a negative, or seek pleasure, move towards a positive. Now, that makes sense, you know. Touch fire, move your hand away, and, you know, you want something good. So think about all the clients. Think about me when I started. I just wanted to be not heavy, right? Now, I understood that there would be some value, but because of my belief system, my primary force was that I wanted to move away from something that I thought was holding me back. Now, seeking pleasure might be that client that says, I want to lose weight. And you say, why? And they say, because of the wedding or the beach, or even because I want to get rid of medication. So that's once again avoiding pain. So the first two are the most common. That's okay that people start there. But the problem with that is, as soon as somebody sees that it's not going to come to fruition, the chances are they're going to turn around. In fact, isn't that why we tell our clients not to weigh themselves every week, right, or every day? Because if they do, and if they just have one bad day, if they're in a bad mood and they get on the scale, that could be the thing that sends them backwards. So avoid pain and seek pleasure are the most common, but they're not good enough. Because if somebody is just trying to do that, just trying to lose weight, or just trying to get in shape, that's not enough. It's the third that provides us with the magic, and that's inspiration. Inspiration transcends the other two. What that means is that when you're inspired to do something, you recognize that you will avoid pain, and you will also gain pleasure from something. But because you're inspired, you've decided that even if it's hard, you understand the challenges as well as the rewards. But because you're inspired, you're going to do it anyway. So now think about your clients that are really, really engaged, fully integrated, or think about you or your health coaches that are really, really doing well at this. Think about Dr. A. Think about me. Think about the Millers. Think about all these rock stars. They're just normal people, but they're people that are inspired. That's why they're doing so well. It's not because they're good at what they do. They're good at what they do because they were inspired to be. So inspiration is the key. So let's look at that. Inspiration is created by the discovery moment. Now, you know, discover your optimal health. Discovery. When somebody discovers that something is in alignment with that which matters most to them, they have a discovery moment. And then if there's a connection, they become inspired. So inspiration is created when the client or the coach realizes that Take Shape for Life is the vehicle that can give them what they want, not what they want right now, but what they want in their lives. So somebody that's just trying to lose weight, they're not going to potentially be inspired. But when they lose weight, there's a chance of being inspired, right? What we're doing is we're trying to guide people, because we want to get America healthy, that's our mission, to find that which matters most in their life could potentially be connected to Take Shape for Life as the vehicle. So my question to you is, what business are we in? Are we in the business of telling people what they should do? Well, the old me, before healthy JC, and listen, I got a long way to go. I am growing up like a child grows up in this company, in this family. And each time I'm exposed to you, just like National Convention and these events, I grow up. And people used to tell me they didn't like me, and now people tell me they didn't used to like me, but now they do. That wasn't my goal, but that's because I'm growing up. We're not in the business of telling people what they should do. I used to, as a doctor, people would come in and say, my back hurt, and I'd say, well, here's what you should do. Here's what you should do. I recommend this, and this is what I recommend for you. So who is this about? When we're talking about Autonomy Supportive, it's about them, right? But it's also about us, isn't it? I mean, listen, I play a game with my kids, and I play a game called Good Word, Bad Word. I try to teach them good words and bad words. So I'll play a good word, bad word with you. Good word or bad word? Selfish. You're probably thinking bad word. And then I say selfless, and then you're thinking good word. Well, there's nothing wrong with being selfish, because we don't think, say, or do anything unless it feeds our intrinsic motivation and has value. So this is about them, but it's also about us. But because there'll be a disconnect if our current reality butts heads with theirs, we have to make it about them in the beginning, don't we? But we gain from this. Don't lose sight of this, You're all selfish, and I love you for it. How about that? So here's an interesting thought. People are constantly saying, how do I build my business? How can I accelerate my business? My question to you is, are you inspirational? My belief is that anybody that's doing very well in this business, whether they're a senior coach going to ED and climbing the ranks, or even a leader, they're inspirational. The reason why Dr. A has come so far is because he's inspirational. I told you before, I'm inspired by these guys, I'm inspired by Dr. A, and I'm inspired by you. I'm inspired by all the little things. I don't think that you even understand how inspirational you are to me. So how can you build your business? How about becoming a fully integrated client? People are watching. People are assessing your authenticity, and people are watching if your life is in motion. Now, I can tell you from a business standpoint, I had a lot of people that were not interested in Take Shape for Life, and they got interested when they saw not only did I lose weight and keep it off, but I started driving a nicer car, and I started going to my kids' games. I started to pull up and drop my kids off at school and pick them up, and people said, wait a second, I was the only dad doing that. So are you living your life around what matters most? Now, if we're telling people that the idea is to create a life around what matters most, but you're not doing it, people are watching that. Are you inspirational? Are you mission-based? It's okay if you start off as a health coach, as a kit buyer, as Kim Fisk says. Your current reality is that you might want to make more money or move away from having less money, or you might just be interested in the purpose of but when you link into the mission, you become inspirational. I don't believe that people think that I'm in this for the money. I used to be, though. Money was really important to me. But you know what happened once I had money? I let go of my story, and I started to become mission-based, because when the money thing happened, I found myself always doing the right thing. And that's why I love to speak about the truth and be transparent, because I've let go of my story, not my weight loss and motion into optimal health. I've let go of my care for being the best, for my ego. I used to be so egoistic, but I'm mission-based now, and that is inspirational to people, I believe. We can't expect anyone to do anything more than we do ourselves. Makes sense. What happens to you when you face adversity or get knocked down in life? People notice. When you have a bad day or when adversity strikes us, it's the leader, it's the inspirational leader that handles it with grace. I spoke to a woman today in my office that had a really rough time. She had a very strong adversity occur in her life. And because I was calm and collected, because I handle adversity with grace because of my current reality, it calmed her down. That's inspirational. So be inspirational. If you want to build your business, be inspirational. So let's get into autonomy supportive. Like I said, when Dr. Ray mentioned autonomy supportive, I looked it up, I got the meaning, and the mechanical, technical side of me thought I knew what it was. But here's my question to you. What do clients want? Now, I don't have many clients. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I don't have many clients call me up and say, hi, Dr. JC, I'm in search of optimal health, and I would like to be part of the mission to get America healthy and embrace, the habits of health and the trilogy of optimal health. No, typically people call me and say, Mary told me that she lost 30 pounds, and I want to do the same. So if we really are thinking on average what people are looking for, and we can never assume, primarily, what do clients want? Think about it. There's different scenarios, but understand that. Now, what do coaches want? Now, I'm unveiling my truth. When I first did this, I wanted to lose weight. When I became a health coach, once again, because I wasn't healthy yet, and I moved fast through this rank, I wanted more time with my kids, and I wanted to make more money because I thought that if I made more money, I could step away from my practice, which ended up being true, but that's what I wanted. So if somebody offered me something outside of what I wanted, it might not be here today, and a lot of you might not be here. So what's your why? What's their why? If you don't have an idea of what they are, being a detective of intrinsic motivation, and you don't find out what their why is, which we talk about so often, then you're missing the first step of being autonomy supportive. Being autonomy supportive means being understanding and okay, what a powerful word, and okay with what they think and want. That's what we call their intrinsic motivations and where they are right now. So that's one of the very, very first steps. We've got to just understand them. So I used to be a hunter. I learned from Cialdini's book that to become a detective of intrinsic motivation, but I used to walk up to people and tell them what I thought that they should think and what they should want. But Dan Bell reminded me, God, I have so much gratitude for these guys, our leaders, Dr. A and Dan Bell. And that takes a lot for me to say. These are people that have completely changed my life. And because I have so much respect for them and I'm so inspired by them, when they speak, I listen. That's not something that the old JC used to do. I never listened to anybody. So Dan Bell says we are guides. So as guides, we don't get people to do anything. You can't get them to want what you want. You can't are you here right now because somebody got you? Or are you here because something we do is inspirational to you and you're excited about it? We can guide them to see a new reality. So a lot of people hear the talk, this talk, and then their natural response is, okay, well, how do I get them? Have you ever said to your business coach or said yourself, I got a client today, right? You didn't get a client, you attracted a client. And that client signed up because something that you do meets their value system, value-seeking missiles. So in order to be guides, we have to ask the right questions, and we can guide them to a new reality. Now, let's be honest. We know that we have a diamond in our pocket. And the reality is if I speak to a crowd, I don't care how big it is or how small it is, and I ask these questions, who in this audience wants to be healthier? Everybody raises their hand. Who wants to be happier? Everybody raises their hand. And there's laughing going on. And I say, who wants to be wealthier, right? What if I ask this question? Who in this audience wants to be overweight and unhealthy, right? Listen, what we have is a secret, right? Everybody wants what we have. So we can't tell them to want what we want, but we can guide them by asking the right questions. So do you get frustrated? So this is a cute picture. Here's something about frustration. Frustration comes from a disconnect between current realities and a low or inefficient EI, emotional intelligence. This is a big one for me. I didn't realize, and once again, emotional intelligence, I wouldn't know about that without Dr. Ray, because somebody else might have said it, but when my leader, when my mentor, somebody that I really respect says it, I get it. So if you're frustrated with your clients because they're not succeeding, or you're frustrated with your coaches because they're not performing, it's because you want them to want what you want, right? But I ask clients or coaches, I say, do you ever have any clients not call you back? And they say, yeah. And I'm like, how does that make you feel? And, oh, it makes me feel awful. And I said, well, maybe they don't want to call you back. You know, have you ever thought about that? Do you think that they're not calling you back to like bother you or to make you angry? You know, if a health coach says they're going to go senior coach or executive director and they don't, maybe they didn't want to, or maybe they weren't ready. So if you get frustrated, it's only because your current reality is disconnected from theirs. So autonomy supportive means let's take the time to focus on what they want and let them move at their pace. And the people that are doing really, really well in this business are experts at this. And they didn't used to be, but they're finding out what people are motivated by and on their terms, allowing them to move forward. But because they're inspirational, people are catching fire to this. So emotional intelligence is a huge, huge thing to practice. I spoke before about, you want to build your business, become inspirational, become a fully integrated client, life in motion, and all that stuff. If you want to become better at understanding other people, work on your emotional intelligence. There's great books about it. Dr. A is an expert at speaking about it. The first two pillars of emotional intelligence I'll share with you quickly were the most pivotal for me. The first one talks about self-awareness. Now, if you have the ability right now, while you're listening, to raise your hand and either say it out loud, make sure nobody's listening, or look at the person next to you and say, I have a tendency of doing this that I know puts people off sometimes. I'll share mine with you. I talk too much, and I put my foot in my mouth. In fact, I love putting my foot in my mouth. It's who I am. But I understand that talking too much and not listening and putting my foot in my mouth takes people away from being fantastic in life. So because I understand and I made a connection that my self-awareness, I can't change who I am. It's who I am. But I can regulate, second pillar of it, I can regulate that which I know is creating interference in what I say I want, right? There's a saying that I love called be, do, have. That means that who you are determines how well what you do works. So if I know that I do something that challenges the success of others, I don't have to change who I am, but I have to be able to regulate it. So think about that. If you have the ability right now to say, this is my problem. You know, I have a tendency to be a know-it-all, or I have a tendency to be pushy. Well, listen, if you want to have a conversation, you and I will both agree that that's getting in the way of people's success. So self-awareness gives rise to the ability to have self-regulation. Very important. So let's talk about a fundamental shift, because the reality is that we all know that when a client becomes a fully integrated client, they get better results, more referrals, bigger business, health coach opportunity, right? We know that. So the truth is that our goal is to get people to be fully integrated clients. That's our truth. But we're talking within our current reality right now, so it's okay. We can't say those things to them, but we can be guides. And there's a systematic approach. It's universal, and I'm just going to share with you the method that I use that lends to everything else everybody does that is very, very effective. So we want to take people or guide people from weight loss to create health, fully integrated client. There's more aspects of it. So the first question I ask people is, what do you want? So now, if you think about it, I know we have clients that don't call us sometimes. And, you know, as you go through the ranks and you become a better health coach, that happens less and less and less. But chances are you're going to have the opportunity, maybe even one opportunity, to ask people in that first client profile what they want, right? So if you have the opportunity to ask somebody what they want, what are they going to say? We go back to that question before, what do clients really want? So let's just use an example. If I say to Mary Jones, I say, Mary, yeah, you signed up for the program, we did the profile, and I said, so tell me, what do you want? What are your goals? And let's just use a traditional scenario where she says, well, I'd like to do 60 pounds. So she's saying she wants to lose 60 pounds based on her current reality. We've established that. And her current reality is based on her concepts. So because we have supportive, we don't challenge that it's not about weight loss. What we do next is we say why. And then she might say something that refers to removing pain or seeking pleasure, right? Which we're okay with. We say why. And she says, well, I want to get ready for the wedding, or I want to get off of medications or something. So we embrace it and we're okay with that. Here is where the fundamental shift begins, I believe. Once somebody tells you what they want and why they want it, have you ever asked them if they want your help? Now, leaders do this probably instinctively, but if you don't have somebody connected to you, maybe they didn't ask to be connected to you, or maybe you didn't let them know that they have a choice. So what if somebody tells you what they want and why they want, and then you say, hey, listen, I had a weight loss experience, and I've achieved levels of optimal health that probably don't even make sense to you, and I've helped hundreds or thousands or many people do this. Would you like my help in this? Now, they want to lose weight, they want health, they told you why, their basic why, and now they've asked you for help. Now, here's where we have the first opportunity to really talk about what we think. Why? Because they've given you permission to do so. Once you have permission and an invite to help, that's when you can find what I refer to as the deep truth, okay? So here are some basic questions once they say that they want my help that I ask. So the question one is, I say, well, great. I'm happy to hear that. Let me ask you a question. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask you just a few more questions. You can answer them if you want. I just want to get to know you better. It will really help me provide you with the best service for you. And then they always say yes, because they asked you for help. Question two, what are the three most important things to you in your life? How many times do we ask people that? Because all of a sudden, that's not a weight loss question. What we're asking is, what are the three most important things in your life, right? In fact, what are the three things in your life that you simply can't be without? So what are they going to say? There's usually about 5 answers. My family, my kids. Sometimes they'll say my kids and my husband or my wife, and we call that family, right? Sometimes they'll say their health. Sometimes they'll say money, happiness, purpose. So all of a sudden, they've just unveiled to you their deep truth. They told you that they just want to lose weight, but now they told you what matters most to you. So now you have the ability to make a connection. So when someone tells you what matters most to you, what can you do next? So let's review this and talk about how you make the connection. You ask what, you ask why, you get permission, you ask if they want help, you dig deeper, and now you can say this to them. This is probably the most pivotal thing that happened in my life. And I do this with clients all the time. I say, I really want to, I appreciate it. I want to thank you for sharing that, because now I really feel like I know who you are. But let's kind of paint a picture, because you told me you want to lose 60 pounds. So let's dream weave a little bit. Let's paint a picture. So let's say 3 months from now, you're down 60 pounds, or even a month from now, you've lost 15, 20 pounds. Who knows? And obviously we have to do that within the spectrum of what we're allowed to say, but it's dream weaving. 20 pounds later, 60 pounds later, let me ask you a question. How are the things that matter most to you, those 3 things you share with me, are they going to get easier or harder? And they always say easier. Are they going to be more fun or less fun? Are you going to have more fun and more time and more energy for your kids, or less? And they always say yes. So here's how we get them or guide them to become fully integrated clients. I just say to them, I go, listen, it is amazing what I do for a living, and I got to tell you that I don't help people lose weight. I really, in effect, help people change their lives, which you now see. Wouldn't you agree that it's not, wouldn't you agree that we should set our goal to be something more juicy? let's not set our goal. We're doing this together. We're forming a partnership with them. Let's not set our goal to just lose 60 pounds. Let's think bigger. Let's think something more juicy. Let's set our goal to do something bigger like create health. Now, what I find, and that's not a manipulative process, that's a guide. I'm challenging them, I'm making them look deeper, and then I'm inviting them to make a connection. They only want to create health, but they want to create health based on what matters most to them. So now you've got the possibility of greatness. Now you've got the potential for a fully integrated client. Now, I always talk about the business opportunity because I know that very often that's the shift. If those people meet the same people that I've met that have helped me grow up and become a good person, I mean, I don't know if there's anything more important than that. So I always like to talk about it in this way. I say, listen, you can imagine how fun it is what I do. I mean, I'm helping people change their lives. And, you know, when I lost weight, I saw that opportunity, and that's how I became a health coach. In fact, most of my health coaches are people just like you that lost weight and, you know, just wanted to pay it forward on a small level or a big level. So we can talk about that some other time, but I just want you to understand that this is big. So you understand how we can make that connection and dig deeper. I hope that provided value for you. So my last slide is this, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this. I mean, my selfish intentions tonight, I used to be a guy that talked a lot, right? I loved talking, and everybody told me to shut up, right? But now people ask me to talk, so I like this. This is fun. It really brings me joy, and I'm honored to be able to, you know, share this information on it's such a precious thing to be able to share on this level with so many of you. Be a guide. Think about these things. Be a detective. Be a detective of intrinsic motivation. Be self-aware so that you can be self-regulating. Be understanding and okay. Be successful, which is what happens. Be autonomy supportive. So once again, I'll leave this last slide because it's just a slide that I really, really love. It was really cool. It was really cool to do this with you because I attribute everything that I love today and how my life has improved and my current reality to this topic. And I'm thankful and I have gratitude for Dr. A and Dan Bell for creating this thing and giving me the possibility of greatness. And I'm thankful to my coaches for being autonomy supportive and recognizing that I wasn't ready at different times. All of those things together brought me here today, and I'm more inspired, more certain, and more excited about this mission to get America healthy than ever before. So that's my share, and I'll throw it back to you, Terry.
Well, oh my gosh, JC, that was awesome. We are enjoying this as much as everybody else on the line. You know, I wanted to just ask you just a couple questions. You know, I know when you were sharing this with me and going over it, one of the things you were talking to me about was how that you just take people kind of like one step at a time. You know, just, you know, like they just want to lose 60 pounds, but you know that there's so much more. How do you kind of take them through that, just kind of one step?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the whole concept of what I'm talking about. I like to ask those questions because my philosophy is that first step they want to take is based on their current reality, and I like to give them the opportunity to just assess maybe there's more to their current reality. So very often the first step that they were going to take is really not the first step that they take, and you guys know that. You know, there's a difference between a client that really doesn't weigh themselves every day and buys into the whole concept, and that client that when I say read chapter 3 and they come back and tell me about it. So those steps are different, but I mean, I do the same thing that you guys do and the same thing that we were taught. I check on them every day. I get them help them guide them into fat burn. And the first step is really, let's see if the program works. And then their current reality starts to change. And it's hard to say how I take everybody through the steps because everybody's different. Everybody's got to get different current reality. So I guess the best answer I could give you with how I take people through steps is I watch, I listen, and I learn, you know, because they're the ones that dictate the steps, not me.
Right, and I agree with you totally. And one of the great things is I heard is you walk them through the process of their why and getting them to figure out what they want. And a lot of times we'll get them to that point, but then we have to pull it back because we have to get them back to step one. That, okay, so you're really excited about your why now, and you're kind of focused on what you ultimately want. Now let's just focus on getting you healthy if it's a client, or just focus. This is the first step. Let's get you to senior coach. You know, these are the things that we bring them back to. Give them the big picture. Give them a first step.
Sometimes people, like, when they get excited and inspired, they want to run before they walk, and we almost have to, like, take it away from them and say, well, let's wait for the food to get here first. You know what I mean?
Or they just get overwhelmed. You know, I'm so excited about all this stuff. What do I do first? You know, so we just kind of bring them back to the first step again, and then guide them up that first step, and then they know where they're going from that point on. That's the structural tension we talk about, but really they're coming from an autonomy supported place where they're governing their growth and the speed of the growth of their business. And you had a lot of great nuggets in there. I really enjoyed listening to your presentation.
That means a lot to me.
You know, JC, I was thinking about when you were first talking about the beginning, you know, when you first were introduced to Take Shape for Life, because I know when I had my first shake with Take Shape, in my mind I was having a Metafast shake. That's what it was. I didn't even have any idea this was an opportunity.
Exactly, yeah.
And if my coach would have overwhelmed me with this potential opportunity, you know, knowing she knew me, so she would have said, "Oh my gosh, Terry! Oh my gosh, you could come in and Take Shape for Life, and you could bring David home, and you could do whatever you want." Blah, blah, blah. I'm positive I probably would have sent my food back.
That's right.
You know,
but as soon as you made the decision, and I know, you know, Terry, you and I are very similar. We like to make decisions for ourselves, and you know, it just makes total sense. It's like everybody once you see the light, you can see it. You know, but if somebody tries to show you the light, very often because of your current reality, you can't see. I have one quick little really cool story about 3 clients that just started that I think is pertinent. 2 sisters and a husband came in and wanted to start the program. So, you know, I really, everything that I just said, I really do that stuff. So once I unveiled what was going on, the real situation was that one of them was obese and the other 2 needed to lose weight, but their real reason for doing the program was to support her. It had nothing to do with them. They wanted to lose a couple pounds, but they didn't think they had any problems. It was for her. So the old, you know, the unprofessional or uneducated health coach, you know, structure would be to just say, "Hey, that's a great idea. I won't say anything." But I took them all through the process, and because I allowed them, sure enough, this obese woman had a big why, you know, and it was about removing pain, and she's moving through the program beautifully. But the other 2, I asked them to have a private conversation with them, and I said, "I don't want to talk about your sister. I want to talk about you." And I took them through these questions, and I got to tell you something. The sister's going to lose weight, and she's going to be amazing, and her whole life's going to change. But those 2, the husband and the sister, have had a breakthrough in their life that they didn't even know existed, only because I asked them some questions. Amazing.
That's beautiful, JC, because that's what we do, is we build relationships and we get to know people.
That's right. Love it.
JC, I do have a question on the chat line, and it was, what if someone, after you know what their why is, and somebody gets distracted or you know, loses focus on their why, how do you bring them back to that?
Okay, so once I find out, I'm assuming what they're referring to is their deep why, because if somebody just gives me their surface why, you know, for the wedding or something like that, that's probably something that most people forget about. So I'm assuming that you mean once we go through this process and we really find out what matters most and they get distracted, the first thing I do is I say, well, people get distracted. And I raise my hand and I say, I get distracted, you know? So I don't take it personally. And I just take the opportunity to increase the value to them of what I am as a coach. And I sit and talk to them. Sometimes, like you said, David, sometimes I'll say to them, I'll go, you know, forget about the program for a second. You know, I like to say, forget about that. Let's talk about you for a second. You know, let's reassess what it is that you really want. And all I do is, they always say the same thing because they still want the same thing. But then I say, well, what is it that you're doing that's stopped your forward motion? And, they call it cheat and all that stuff. And Kim is a wonderful speaker on that concept. But I just ask them, I go, well, when you fall backwards, it's because your why not overpowered your why. You understand? So I give them a choice. I say, right now, you're telling me that eating a donut is more important than the things that matter most to you? Is that what you're saying? And they go, of course not. And I said, so I want you to not feel bad about it because you decided to eat that donut. At that point, it seemed like the right thing to do. But my question to you is if I put both of them in front of you right now, optimal health and donut, optimal health and kids and all that stuff you said you wanted, and donut, what are you going to choose? And they say, duh. So I say, so wouldn't you agree that you don't really want that donut? You just had a weak spot in your life. And they say, yes. And then I say, what can I do to help you work through that? And then books, stop, challenge, choose, it's all there.
That is so good, just to keep bringing them back to their why. And that's why it's so important to peel back that onion and just really keep asking what is their why. Like I have found, JT, tell me if you've found this too, is that it takes about, like when someone says what their why is, like for example, I want to lose 60 pounds, okay? Why? Well, because I want to look good at my daughter's wedding. That's still not enough why.
For them it's enough.
Right, but you just keep going and asking, and but I have found it takes about 4 whys to get to the root.
It's like we just keep going lower and lower. Yeah,
you're like a 2-year-old. Why? And it is kind of gets a little like that, but
you do it far more professionally.
But everybody has their own rhythm to that and their own style. But one of the things you were saying earlier is just getting them connected to you in a positive way. I think that when people come to you and they feel like we were just having this discussion about the celebration day. Well, what if I wasn't successful that weekend? Well, if you weren't successful on one thing, let's celebrate. It's only a failure if you didn't learn anything from it. So let's celebrate.
I like to ask them, I say, how do you define success?
Exactly.
And then they go back and say, well, the scale didn't move. And I go, did you read the chapter? I mean, so it's so much fun to be able to guide these people because, and if you really think about all this stuff that we're talking about, and listen, I'm looking at David and Terry Miller right here. I mean, you guys are the best, and I look at you guys and I love learning from you, and I love to, you know it, admit it. I love to learn from you, but I just think that it's so amazing that not only do we have those checks that I said, but we have the ability to help people make breakthroughs in life. Like, it's like, what? It's amazing.
It is. And JT, as we're wrapping up, I have one last question that's come on the chat line, and I think it's really important for clarity. It is really, the question is, are you getting all these down to their deep why all in one conversation?
Absolutely. That conversation, by the way, is a 5-minute conversation. I'm saying, what do you want? They say it, and I say, why? And they tell me, and I accept it. And then I just say, well, would you like my help, right? And then once they do, I don't move to the next slide and talk about frustration. I just say, well, I'm happy to hear that. Could I ask you some more questions just to get to know you better? So what have I been talking for 30 seconds now? And everybody likes to talk about what they really want in life. And that's a fun conversation to have. In fact, isn't that what we do on Practice Partners? It
is. Though, wouldn't you also find sometimes that just as you're developing relationships with people, it takes a little bit of time to, before you even get to introduce Take Shape for Life. So I think that's where the question's coming from, is sometimes you're building a relationship with someone before you even get to introduce Take Shape for Life. And then as you're, if they come on as a client and you're coaching them, and you're building a relationship with them, you're learning more and more and more about their true why.
Yeah, I feel that when somebody signs up for the program, that's when these questions are most pertinent, because by signing up, they've at least invited me to ask those simple questions. But if they haven't signed up or coming onto the program, it's a different conversation. All I'm doing is being a trilliologist, right? and being inspirational and just speaking to them about what they care about. And it usually leads to them saying, what do you do? And, oh, yeah, I want to do that. But I don't go through that until they've asked me to be their coach.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so I really want to thank you. Just for, you shared so much, and I had lots of things on the chat line of just cool. People loving to be an inspiration, and you've shared so much, so thank you.
Yeah, I think that some people still struggle with autonomy supportive and what that is about. I think you cleared up a lot for the people out there, and I really appreciate your professionalism and bringing your basically your personality into that, which really is we talk about the skills and the strengths in this business, and you are a great presenter, and I think you with your visual aids and really sharing with us what's important to you can help other people understand and how to think through this process.